Hello and welcome to another woodshop project. I'm sure you've seen wooden cell phone stands, but I saw some the other day that are designed to amplify your phone speaker. So I want to find out if those actually do anything. So in this video I'm going to build a couple of them and test them out. And I'll show you how to build them and I'll show you the test results. I'm starting out just cutting the basic pieces on the miter saw. And the first two pieces are about 7/8 of an inch thick and 4 3/4 inches wide, and I'm cutting them at 4 3/4, so they're square. The second board is a 1/2 inch thick, and I'm also cutting them at 4 3/4, so the same stop block does all the pieces. I cut 2 of the thicker ones, and I'll need 4 of the thin ones to make 2 stands. And the only reason I'm making 2 is I want to experiment a little with the shape of the sound amplification section to see if the shape makes any difference at all. Once I get the pieces cut out, I need to cut the shape of the inner piece kind of in a megaphone type shape. I marked out the basic dimensions, and one of these will be curved, so I drew it out on paper and then cut it out and traced it onto the board. And like so many times when I'm working on something in the wood shop, I got sidetracked because my son was working in the other shop and needed a hand, so I went and helped him tear down his project he's just starting on the other channel. I ended up working on that the rest of the day with him. Now you know why I don't always get videos out as fast as I want sometimes. Anyway, the next day I got back to my project. I had already marked the curved one, but I'm using the paper template to mark the back corners to mark the straight lines for the second one. And you'll see the actual shapes after I cut them out on the bandsaw. And I'll show you the actual dimensions later. These are basic shapes, easy to cut out, and you could easily do them with a jigsaw. I'm cutting the curved one first, but I'm actually cutting it wrong and didn't realize it. I was laying it out and I had multiple lines marked on there as I was just figuring it out as I went along, and I cut to the wrong line. Luckily I cut it wrong in a way that I can easily cut more to fix it, but you'll see that in a minute. I'm cutting the straight one here, and I actually got that one right. And there it is. I started sanding them, and that's when I realized my mistake. I screwed up cutting this one a little bit, didn't cut it back far enough. I cut to the wrong line, so I need to go back and fix it so it's about 3/4 of an inch from the back, like this one. So back to the bandsaw to do a little more cutting. That's better. Now that that's fixed, I'll get back to sanding. I got what I could with the random orbit, but it wouldn't get into the inner part, so I did some block sanding. Got the curved back part with the spindle sander, and got into the corners with my little detail sanders. It's not really critical to get these sanded super smooth because you won't really see the inside part, but I did it anyway. I needed to cut slots in the top pieces, so I did that on the router table. I used a 1/2 inch straight cutting bit, set to just over half the thickness of the piece. I had start and stop points marked out on the fence, and I cut first from one side, then flipped it and finished the cut from the other side. And I did 2 like that since I'm making 2 of these little units. You could also make these by cutting a 1/2 inch hole at each end of the slot and then cutting the straight cuts with a jigsaw. I knocked the sharp edges down with a little hand sanding. And here are the dimensions of the inner pieces that act to direct or amplify the sound. The inner part is about 2 inches wide at the back, and it's 3/4 of an inch from the back. No particular radius for the curve at the back, I just kind of marked it by eye. I intended the slot to be 3¼ inches long and 1/2 inch wide, and in about 3/4 of an inch from each side. It ended up a tad longer on this one, which is no big deal. The assembly is just going to be glue and clamps. Any wood glue will work. I'm using Titebond 2 here, even though it looks like Titebond Original. I reused the bottle because I'm a cheapskate. I'm thrifty. I'm thrifty. So I just refill it from a gallon of Titebond 2. Once I get the glue on there and all put together, I use the quick grip clamps to hold them together until I get the F-style clamps on. Those quick grips come in super handy because you can use them one-handed. They were invaluable when I was building the house, and well, all my construction projects really, whenever I needed a third hand or to temporarily hold something. And they still come in handy in the wood shop. I probably don't need this many clamps, but I got a mess of these little F-style clamps, so I figured too many is better than too few. Anyway, same procedure times 2. I set those aside to dry, and instead of twiddling my thumbs waiting for glue to dry, I went and did something else. And that took up the rest of the day. Back to the wood shop the next morning, and off come the clamps. I had pretty good alignment on them, but I smoothed them out nicely on the belt sander. Then took them to the router table to round over all the edges with a 3/6 roundover bit and a little comic relief. Took me a minute or two to realize I hadn't gotten the collet tight on the bit, and it was bobbing up and down like a dashboard bobblehead on a rough road. Luckily, it was being driven away from the work, so it didn't do any damage. Once I figured it out and tightened it, I finished both of them with no other issues. I did the roundovers on all the outside edges. Then I did some final finish sanding, and it's time to test these things out and see if they actually do anything. I did a test just with a microphone to see if you can actually hear a difference. Once I get set up, I start some music on the phone. And I'm not adjusting the volume in any way during editing. What you hear is the actual difference of the phone playing music not in the stand and then in the stand. I don't know if it sounds better or not, but it does sound louder, I think. Then a test to see if there's any difference in the two different styles, the curved one or the straight cut one. I don't really hear much of a difference between the two. And I set up a decibel meter to see if there's any measurable difference. finish them off, I just use my own mix of hard wax oil. And if you make these, make sure you cut the slot so your phone will fit in it. A 1/2-inch slot worked well for my phone. The inner piece is designed to be open enough to let the sound from the speaker in, but also be narrow enough so the phone is supported by it. So it's a pretty easy to make little item and actually does work. Give them a try. Hey, thanks so much for watching. I do appreciate it. See you next time.